So I've been playing Fallout 4 a lot for probably like, I don't know, like the past week and a half. I've put like a lot of fucking time into that game. Man, maybe like 90 hours or something, like a whole ton. It's like it's like two yeah, it's like a lot. It's days. It's like days of my actual life have gone into that freaking game. And I'm digging it, right? Like I like shit like that. I just like the big like open world stuff where you can run around, poke around in buildings, like meet up with like strange crap in like the forest or whatever. I kind of dig that general situation. So I'm enjoying it. I like of the giant amount of time that I've played this game. I haven't actually completed like any of like the quest chains. I haven't completed any like the major ones or like the actual like main plot. Like all I've been doing is just kind of like I've been doing like little quests and stuff for those Minuteman guys. Like getting the settlements together and like a few other things. Like I found this town called Covenant that had like this evil thing going on. I'll get to that in a minute because I'm gonna make a point about a few things that might be a little shabby about the game, But yeah, like I've been, pretty much all I've been doing is like running around in like ruined cities and scavenging like ceiling fans and bringing them back and like making like a giant garbage town out of it, like like because like there's a like a city building aspect to it, which is cool. But like the whole problem I'm having, first thing, right? Like I was expecting there to be like, if they were gonna do movie references and shit like that, I was expecting there to be a lot more stuff that actually referenced like post-apocalyptic films. But it seems like there's a lot of cars driving by. I think we'll continue to drive by. No, we're good. It seems like I'm gonna go over there by those dumpsters. Why not? Yeah, but it seems like their main inspiration for a lot of shit, because there's this quest line where like people are being like replaced by robots. Apparently, like I haven't been all the way through it, so I don't know how it like all works out, right? But like it kind of feels like a cross between like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and like Blade Runner and maybe like a little Terminator in there, because it's like humanoid robots and everyone's afraid of them. And like they're trying to come up with this thing that reminds me of the Voight-Kampff test from Blade Runner, like to like test like emotional like responses to shit, to see who's like a, what do they call them, synths, to see who's like a synth and who isn't, And that's like the coolest quest I've been on so far. Is like there's this thing where there's like a little mysterious town and shit, and you end up going into like some sewers, and there's some fucking like serious like Nazi science happening with like torture and like weird shit. But yeah, though it's weird that like they kind of hit on that. They kind of hit on this Body Snatchers Blade Runner vibe, like for like their inspiration for like a whole lot of shit in the game. Like everything else is just like kind of unengaging, like a lot of the quests, like there's these guys, the first thing you do when you get out of the vault, right, you go into this like city, there's these dudes hanging out in a museum, right, and they're like called like the Minutemen or whatever, like they because it's all like Boston and like New England area like stuff, so they have that whole like Revolutionary War aesthetic to them and shit like that, and they use like laser muskets and do a bunch of weird shit. But like you end up like doing a whole bunch of stuff for them, and like getting you get power armor super early. Like I'm sure most people have played this by now, so they totally know, but which is actually very cool. That's like it's got some very cool mechanics to it, but like once again, later. But yeah, you like, and that's kind of what the settlement building like aspect of it is. Like you build towns kind of for these guys, and it's kind of like it's kind of like in conjunction with this like organization of like Minutemen or whatever. It's kind of like a loose, kind of, I don't know, not exactly like a governing body, but it's kind of like a militia of people who like fight raiders and shit. That's like, that's pretty much their big thing, you know. So my problem with the game, here's my problem with it. Like, I am having fun with it. I'm playing it like a lot, right? And doing like a lot of shit. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, you know. There's a lot of like cool ass game mechanics and like random shit. For example, you know, like there's like a whole bunch of gun mods you can do. Like there's a whole bunch of like weird crafting and modification shit. And, like the power armor is awesome. And like you do like run afoul of like cool stuff when you leave like your little settlement. You go out into the wasteland and you start scavenging around. Like you know, you do like, I'm saying like a lot, but you get up to adventures, you know, which is fun. Like kind of reminds me of how it used to be in like Morrowind and games like that, like earlier like Elder Scrolls games, where like the difficulty doesn't really like scale too well, you know, so like there's just powerful shit that's after you all the time, and like you can just like you can go into a cave and find adventure if you want. You don't absolutely have to have a quest to go on, you know. There's no mission necessary to do shit, and it's still pretty rewarding once you do it. But like, and that's what I've been doing instead of actual quests. I've just been like running around doing random shit in the world. But yeah, what the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, my problems with the game, right? Here's what it is, right? It feels like maybe like the developers or whatever had probably 3 really cool ideas for games. You know, like they had an awesome idea for a game that happens in the post-apocalypse where you try to like rebuild civilization by making towns, you know, and you kind of link up with this like grassroots movement of people who, you know, try to defend shit, and, you know, they're trying to make like a civilization, which is awesome. That would be a super fun game, and that's in Fallout, right? Kind of, you know. There's another game where like it's the apocalypse or whatever, and you're an awesome robot suit pilot, you know, like you find this robot suit or you like inherit it somehow, and you know, it's a very cool like aesthetic and shit like that, and you modify and use this robot suit, and like you have to try to keep it powered. And that's an awesome, you know, that's the second awesome game that these guys were trying to come up with. You know, the third one is definitely a Fallout game where there's a conspiracy of robots or whatever that are like abducting people and, you know, maybe potentially doing weird shit to them, or, you know, it's like a Blade Runner thing where they're, you know, worried about their humanity. Or I haven't gotten that far yet, so, you know, I'm gonna leave that at that because, you know, I don't really have too much to say on it. But, you know, it's like 3 games though, you know, and like when you do that, right, it's like the Ron Swanson adage, right? Never half-ass 2 things, right? Whole-ass 1 thing. You know, you know what I mean? So like these 3 awesome game ideas that they have feel like somebody was like, they feel half-assed, you know what I mean? They feel like they could have done more, you know, like if the game was about one of those elements primarily, then it would have been way better, right? Like if it was about like building up these settlements and towns and shit, there would have been like a lot more functionality there, you know, and would have been, you know, there would have been like cooler stuff going on. The town editor would have been more robust, because whoa crap, I almost fell downhill. But I had this problem, right? With the town editor. I took over this old drive-in theater, you know, and I was like, awesome, you know. I was looking on the internet and shit, and like I was looking at everyone's garbage forts, and they're like, they're shanty towns, and like some people actually did some fucking cool shit. They actually made like brutalist apartment blocks like somehow, and like a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So I'm like, yeah, you know, awesome. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make some like googie 50s, 60s, early 70s style like tube city, right? You know, out of these metal tubes, and everything's gonna be all metal and streamlined, and it's gonna be fucking sweet, and everyone's gonna like, you know, no one's ever gonna have to go outside, and you know, we're gonna grow all our food indoors, and you know, it was a whole bunch of shit. I'm like, I'm gonna have this, you know, concourse, you know, like a giant like Barbarella ass lounge that's all just like super circular with all this sweet ass furniture and disco balls and like, you know, like fucking like bars and restaurants and shit like that. And like I got real excited to do all this shit, and I got all the materials together and I got all the perks I needed. One cool thing about the building stuff is it's not actually based, like it's not like tied to level, so there's no arbitrary time when you can build stuff when you can't. You know, it's not like, well, you reached level 6, so it's time for city building. You know, it's like there's a few things that are based on perks, but you know, it's cool though, because you know, it feels good, that feels right, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff about it that feels wrong. But yeah, like it was super disappointing though when I actually got into the building out there and I'm putting my little tube city together, and like the pieces aren't snapping together right, you know, and for some reason I couldn't have internal doors on shit, because like I was trying to make them these little tube hallways, and like I made these like perfect little kind of tunnely like apartment complexes in there. Like I spent like a whole fucking amount of time on it, but I couldn't put doors on any of it because the end cap for the little like tunnel with the door on it only fits like on the outside of a structure. You can't stick it between two rooms, and I didn't want to have a gap, you know. So it's all really fiddly shit, but it's shit that drove me crazy, right? Like the bars and restaurants and like stores are like these weird, they're just kind of like swap meet like stands, you know, that they're just made of wood, and it's just like a little stand that looks like the little it looks like a lemonade stand, you know. It's gross, and they don't fit inside any of the fucking buildings, right? So like, you know, like I had to compromise on all this shit. I didn't like it, you know what I mean? Like what I wanted was maybe like to be able to build a building and then have some kind of an item that would designate that, like a store or whatever, instead of having like a little like shanty town like shop outside, you know. But you know, it's little things like that. It's stuff that like really bummed me out. I was like, oh man, you know. And there's like a perk that you can get where you can link up the workbenches, you know, at settlements and shit. It's called like a trade route, right? So I kind of assumed that when I linked up two settlements like that, they'd trade resources too, but they don't. It's just stuff from the workbench, you know what I mean? They just trade like desk lamps back and forth, I guess, so you can just build more like garbage forts, you know. Because like what I wanted to do was like I wanted to have, you know, my like original town be like a farm town, you know, and just kind of like supply everyone with food, you know what I mean? Kind of like a Mad Max Fury Road economy where like one city does like one thing, you know, like you got the Bullet Farm and like Gas Town and shit. I was gonna do something like that, couldn't do it though. I don't know why I assumed I could, you know, but it felt like I could, and like I have a feeling it's because there were like, you know, there were 3 different really great ideas going into this fucking game, you know, that they all just decided to fucking kind of mash into one, and none of them like got fleshed out enough. Like there's this whole thing about like power armor, you get it super early, so like that part of the game almost feels like, you know, this is more like a game about like driving around like robot suits and just being a badass, and like, you know, robot suit pilot, you know, Fallout : robot suit pilot. You know what I mean? Like rotting out like robot suits and shit, and there's like a whole bunch of like weird gas stations around with like like little stations that you can like spray paint your robot suit and like do like stuff to it. You can stick different parts onto it, like different armor parts. I don't think you can really like rot it out too much, but that seems like, you know, like one of the developers had this idea, like, let's make a game in Fallout that's just about the power armor, you know. Let's make like a sweet like system where you can just like mod out your shit, so you're just kind of like a regular guy, but you drive this robot suit around. That would have been fucking awesome. Like, you get into like robot suit combat, because like a lot of other people, like raiders, have that shit. They're like walking around like garbage robot armor, you know. And there's like a lot of big animals like Deathclaws and shit that are super hard to fight without that armor, but like, you know, I never use it. I never fucking go anywhere with it, because like it doesn't feel like an integral part of the game. It just kind of feels like a little extra fucking thing, you know. And of course the plot, it's Bethesda, so it's like, you know, the main plot of the fucking game is always kind of bogus, you know, like everybody kind of loses track of it and just like does exploration, which is awesome. I like that, you know. But like it kind of feels like they wanted me to care about it a lot, you know, because it's like your son goes missing or whatever, and like your wife gets killed, so, you know, that's like big vendetta shit. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of stuff involved. It doesn't make any, like, it's weird because like you're like imprisoned in this like fucking, like this vault, this like cryogenic like tube in there for like 200 years, right? And some guys come in and kidnap your shit and kill your wife, and then you go back to sleep. So you could have been there for any amount of time, you know. I'd like to see. I haven't been through it all the way, and if you want to spoil it in the comments, like what happens, that's totally cool. And I completely understand, because I might not actually do the full quest. Like, it would actually help if you went down and told me what the fuck was going on, because like I'd like it to be a mind fuck at the end. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it turns out like you're actually a synth or something, and you're like all your memories are like artificial or whatever, so you act like a human would act, kind of like in Blade Runner with like the Nexus 6 shit, you know. Or like, I don't know, like, you know, any kind of like a mind fuck would be awesome, but I have a feeling it's just going to be like some random shit that they just kind of phone in, you know what I mean? But anyway, I think I'm done talking about this. It's not actually, it's a good game. It's still pretty engaging. I'm having a really good time just like running around and getting in gunfights with people, doing Mad Max type shit, you know. But yeah, those are my criticisms. It's like 3 games, and it doesn't really have enough of a focus to, you know, make any one of its elements really, really awesome, you know. So, you know, if you disagree or you want to discuss it or whatever, comment section is totally open, right? But yeah, man. So I think I'm done. So okay, have fun. I'll be back to talking about movies, you know, next time, obviously. And it's December. So I'm thinking about doing that Vlogcember thing, if people still do that, or I don't know if that's like cliche, or like, you know, if that's old internet hat or not, because I'm just now getting in this whole YouTube deal. So yeah, I don't know if people still do that, because I looked up the Vlogcember tag and everything's from like 2013. So I might be 2 years behind the time. Put that in the fucking comments as well. Also, you know, like, I go to Twitter, if you guys want to subscribe to that. It's the name of the channel, you know. So yeah, man. Okay, cool. So I'm done. I'm gonna go drink some coffee, probably play some more Fallout 4, because it's not really that bad. It's not that bad. It's good. It's got its problems. All right, so